Every book on my March TBR is either huge, complicated, or slightly intimidating. So let's see how this goes. Today I'm finally sitting down to film my March TBR. And I feel like this TBR says a lot about my current reading mood. I'm in a phase where I want stories with big worlds, long timelines, complicated politics, and characters I can really sink into. And I've been craving books that feel immersive and slightly overwhelming in the best way. Now, this is definitely not a light reads only TBR. This is a let's get lost in other universes and maybe question society a little bit. I also feel like March is this weird in between month. Winter is ending, spring is starting, hopefully. Now, I've been reading a lot of sci-fi in February, and I wanted to get a little bit more fantasy in this month, but I still ended up with a lot of sci-fi again. And I'm also trying to be more intentional with my reading this year. I've been slowly working my way through genre classics and longer series, and this TBR reflects that. Now, I'm not pressuring myself to finish everything perfectly. I just want to enjoy the process and see how far I get. So let's talk about the books. First up is the Dragonbone Chair by Ted Williams. This is my biggest commitment on the TBR and my fantasy pick, and definitely my main quest book for the month. This is the start of a classic epic fantasy series, and I've heard it's very much a slow burn, world building first kind of book. Apparently it takes its time setting everything up, which honestly sounds perfect for the mood I'm in right now. And I feel like I've been reading a lot of faster paced books recently, and I kind of miss that feeling of settling into a world and just live there for a while. Something like The Lord of the Rings. I want to learn the geography, the politics, the history, all of it. And I want to get attached to the setting, not just the plot. And this feels like one of those books that rewards patience. And I'm really excited to experience that. And I'm also really curious to see what feels classic fantasy about this in comparison to more modern epic fantasy. Sometimes when you go back to older genres, you can see the DNA of so many newer books, and I love noticing those connections. And many consider this the bridge series between classic fantasy and a more modern fantasy with more grey characters. Now, realistically, I don't expect to binge this in a few days. This is going to be my slow, cozy, long-term read. And I'm picturing myself reading this in the evenings, just a few chapters at a time. This is about the journey, not the destination. And next up is Flight by Yoshiki Tanaka, which is book 6 in the Legend of the Galactic Hero series. And at this point in the series, I feel very emotionally invested. This isn't just a casual read anymore. This is me checking in on a long-running political and military saga that I've been following for a while now. And I love how this series doesn't just simplify conflicts into good versus evil. It really leans into ideology, power structures, leadership styles, and the consequences of political decisions. And what I especially enjoy about the series is how it treats war and strategy as long-term processes. Things don't just reset after each book, decisions carry forward, alliances change, and characters evolve in really complicated ways. And it makes the universe feel very lived in and realistic, even though it's a massive space opera. And because this is book 6, I already know the tone and the style, which makes this a comforting kind of read in a weird way. I don't have to learn a new world from scratch. I can just sink back into an ongoing narrative. And after that, I'm reading Even of Evos by Louis McMaster Bujold. And this one is part of the Vorkosigan saga. But I believe it's more of a side story, which I actually love for the balance. I really enjoy dipping into a familiar universe from a different angle, because it makes the world feel bigger and more complex. And it's like seeing a setting you love through someone else's window. And what I appreciate about Bujold's writing is how character driven it is. Even when the sci-fi concepts are big and complex, the emotional core always feels very grounded and human. So I'm expecting this to be a slightly more intimate read compared to the grand political scope of The Legend of the Galactic Heroes or the sprawling epic fantasy of the Dragonbone Chair. And this is also the book on my TBR that I think will be the most emotionally grounding. When I'm reading a lot of big heavy books, I like having at least one that feels more personal and character focused. And this feels like it's going to be that book for me this month. Thoughtful but not exhausting. And finally, I'm ending the month with Consider Phlebas by Ian M. Banks. This is my first entry into the Culture series, and I've been low-key intimidated by the series for a long time because of how legendary it is in sci-fi circles. Now, I've heard so many different opinions about this book. Some people love it. Some people say it's not the best introduction to the Culture universe. And some people say it's intentionally messy and mortally complicated. And honestly, that just makes me more curious. I kind of love going into books that have mixed reputations because I get to form my own opinion without expecting perfection. And I'm especially interested in the themes around society, technology and power because the Culture series is known for tackling big philosophical questions. And it's also because this series takes place in a future where humanity lives in a utopia and is ruled by AI. And in most other cases, this will turn into a dystopia, but this one stays a utopia, but still faces its challenges. And I'm also expecting this to be a book that's more about ideas than a story. Like I don't think this is going to be a cozy read. This feels like the kind of book that makes you pause, reread sections, and sit with uncomfortable questions. But I'm definitely looking forward to it. So overall, this is a pretty ambitious lineup. I've got one massive epic fantasy, one ongoing space opera, and two classic sci-fi novels with very different tones. Now I'm not setting strict deadlines for each book. My main goal this month is to enjoy the process of reading, especially with the longer and more complex books. And I'm trying to let go of the idea that reading counts only if you finish everything. Progress is still progress, and enjoying a book slowly is still enjoying a book, obviously. So that's my March TBR. If you read any of these, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Spoiler free, of course. Especially if you have strong opinions about the Culture series or the Dragonbone Chair. And if you're also reading epic fantasy or sci-fi this month, tell me what's on your TBR. I'm always looking for future recommendations. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, and I'll hope to see you again in the next one.